is a D6 generation pip. Yeah, one of those dots on the side of a six-sided die. Yeah, a pip. You know, a short pip. Little something. Yeah, about anything gaming related. Sometimes featuring Craig, sometimes featuring Russ. We'll see what's coming up today.
All right, so here we are. We are on the road in the D6G mobile recording studio.
The mobile recording Jeep on our way.
Heading towards, is it Warwick?
Warwick,
Rhode Island for Captain Con.
The home of Captain Con.
The home of the D6 generation.
The birthplace of the D6 generation.
We're actually on the road where Russ and Rafe first actually explained to me what a podcast was, because I had no idea what a podcast was.
Right.
And then pitched the D6 generation to me, I think on the way home. Although I think the foundation was laid on the way down.
So since then, we've pretty much attended every one of these.
We have indeed.
The con name may have changed, but the magic of the location and the people that go
are still the same.
Right. And most years, we run a big event there.
Yep.
And the goal is, it's very laid back, very casual. We bring everything you need to play a large, usually miniature game.
Yep.
All the models. Craig always goes nuts making amazing terrain. We set it all up. We come up with some crazy rules. And then we ask folks that are standing around to just come on over, grab a unit, and play a sort of a casual, fun game with us for a couple hours.
In the spirit of the old Daka Mega Battle.
Yes,
really.
just old fun Mega Battle.
That's where that's the DNA of our events has always been these fun, casual Mega Battles. That's more about the story and the camaraderie than it is about the mechanics of the game.
Yeah, so we try to pick a different game every year. Last year we did Adeptus Titanicus.
We did.
And this year we're going to try Star Wars Legion.
Yes, we are.
Now, also, often what happens is, Craig puts a lot of pre-preparation work into the terrain. I'll generally also work on one of the armies to make sure it's ready to go. But on the way to the event, we sort of plan out how it's going to work.
So this is the peek behind the curtain,
so you get to hear us. Here we are driving our way down, and we're going to start talking about it. I thought, well, that'd be kind of fun. Now, we have a basic idea. So what's our basic idea here, Tim, Craig, for this event?
Well, our basic idea, Russ, is that I have Rebels and Imperials from the first starter.
Yep.
And you jumped in with the droids.
I have the droids.
So
the separatists, as they say.
The separatists,
yeah.
Indeed. So we wanted to have some kind of event where we could all put our stuff on the table and get a chance to put some of these units on and put them against each other. But as we said, we want to come up with a narrative story. So what I initially came up with, and it all kind of revolves around this terrain that I was looking at online when we started talking, is what if there's a rebel base, and the rebels are coming in from one end, and the Imperials are coming in from the other end. And in my head, I knew where I was coming from this, and it was funny because I didn't tell Russ what the genesis of my idea was, and he jumped on it. The very first email I sent him, he knew exactly where I was going with this. There's ruins in the middle of the table, and those ruins are the home of an old separatist droid factory that starts churning out droids in the middle of the battle. Something activates the old factory or the storage, the stasis pods or whatever.
It's a classic 40K Necron situation.
Exactly. Russ was like, oh, the Necrons!
Exactly.
And that's exactly because so Imperial Terrain is one of the first 3D printable terrain companies that came out right when 3D printing started to take off. And they have several different categories of terrain. And one of them is ancient ruins, but it's very much geared towards Star Wars Legion. The ruins look like, if you squint a little bit, you might be like, it could be Mayan, I guess, maybe Aztec. But really, it's like these ancient ruins that you see on Bespin, not Bespin, the Rebel... Yavin, thank you.
An old Jedi temple situation.
Indeed, the whole Jedi temple or Sith temple or whatnot.
Right.
And one of them has like a big sacrificial sort of building in the middle of it. So I thought, well, if we get that terrain and we put that in the middle, that would be awesome. So where we're going into this right now is we have we are in the program as a Star Wars Legion. You come, you don't have to bring anything with you. It's a sort of a demo game / mega battle.
Mhm.
And the basic story is, I can't remember the name of the planet, but it's in the program. It's the planet where the Rebel or the Resistance is located in the Rise of Skywalker. So there's more temples. It's jungle, and it's like we decided we wanted to place it early Empire, early Imperial era, if you will. So we have an elite Imperial force coming in on one side. We've got a Rebel force coming in from the other side, and in the middle are going to be the droids. And that's what we have. So now we need to come up with a story, and I have one.
Excellent.
And my story is, I was going to print this out and have like orders that you can give to each, but we don't need to do that. We can we're going to just sort of explain it at the beginning. So, Director Krennic,
Yes.
in early days of his career, is in charge of this elite unit that has just tracked down signals from a Rebel forward observation post.
Okay.
Okay, so they are now en route to this Rebel forward observation post. Meanwhile, the Rebels had a forward observation post, and then it went offline. So they have no idea what's going on. So they have sent a unit to go find out what happened to their forward observation post.
Just one unit?
No, a detachment.
Okay, got it.
A detachment.
Got it, okay.
Right? And so what you're going to see is, and I'm drawing a blank. Do you remember what the guy who saved? Oh my God, I'm drawing just a series of blanks right now,
Okay.
Russ. The microphone has completely wiped my memory.
Some guy. So there's some guy in the Star Wars universe
In
who
Rogue
did
One.
something.
In Rogue
Okay.
One.
Some guy in Rogue One.
Who saved her at the beginning of the
Okay.
movie.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
later,
yeah,
he's
yeah.
a leader of a splintered rebel group.
Oh yeah, the
right?
scientist dude.
No, not the
The one who
scientist
designed the
dude.
Death Star, put a weakness
No.
in.
No.
All right, sorry.
No. I want
There's several guys in the
Moss something. Moss
Oh right.
something.
Yes.
Anyway,
I
so
remember the name.
yeah, so he hasn't splintered from the rebels yet. So
Okay.
he's the leader because I got a. So this is all about 3D printing, really.
Is it? Okay, good.
Okay. So I got a 3D printed Legion figure of him.
Mm-hmm.
It looks awesome. So he's going to be a generic rebel leader because he's just kind of like this is the beginning of his career, right?
Yeah.
Jyn Erso is her name.
Yep.
So he saves Jyn Erso.
Yep.
So this is around the time that he saves Jyn Erso.
Okay.
He's still a rebel commander. He hasn't
So before
splintered yet.
New Hope.
Exactly.
Got it,
Yeah.
okay.
Before even, like I would say, probably 20 years or so before Rogue One.
Okay.
Right. So Krennic is sort of not the beginning of his career, but it's right around right around Rogue One, actually,
Okay.
like the beginning
I was gonna
of
say, 'cause
Rogue
she'd be
One,
very young.
where she's a baby.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Krennic hasn't even gone to Galen Erso, the scientist, yet, so he's still off. Whatever. Sadly, what actually happened to this Rebel forward observation post is that these Separatist droid unit has activated and wiped them out. So we're going to set up a Rebel base in the middle of the board among these ruins.
Droids.
And, whoa, is it?
I don't know.
Do we know?
Well, you don't know.
Nobody knows.
We'll find out.
We're going to find out. And so that's now what we have to decide. So this is further pulling back the curtain into deep, deep background. Generally speaking, the way that all of these events go is that I come up with this ridiculously over-the-top, super complicated idea, and Russ finds a through line in my idea that actually will make sense when you add in the component of a bunch of people who have never gamed before with each other and don't know the rules of the game. So the first thing we have to decide, Russ, I guess, is do we start with the droids on the table, or do the droids make like a dramatic appearance at some point in the first turn?
So I feel like this is where the part of the creative process where I try to think of a practical situation
and I get
and apply it to the awesome
in.
idea.
Yeah.
So I do think, while I think it's awesome to have the dramatic surprise of the droids showing up, if we're going to brief the players beforehand and let them look at their units and understand how the game works, I think we're going to need to have the droids can't be a surprise. Like they're going to know there's droids in the table.
Right.
And so I also think it'll speed the game up and get us playing faster if the droids are either starting on the table, or we could put all the droids in reserve and have them appear as reserves from one of the table edges, maybe. But or I guess it could be a generator in the center. So if the fluff is the factory just turned on, and units are coming out,
right,
then it could be that each player's first activation is to move the droids on from some kind of like centrally placed structure, like a cave or something.
Which I have.
Okay.
The whole thing is designed around this one structure.
So then the other thing I wanted to get, we should figure out real quick is, so the fundamental mechanics of Star Wars Legion are designed for 2 players.
Oh no,
now,
I didn't even think about that.
Now, when we add a third army, now normally what we do when we have these big multiplayer battles is we have 2 sides in most cases, but each player controls 1 unit. So to take a game that's designed for 2 players and make it multiplayer, all you basically do is when it's your activation, you move your unit, you're having fun, and you're talking to each other. So now we're adding a third army. So the first question we have to ask ourselves is, do we think the activation system and initiative system with the cards that is foundational to Star Wars Legion will work by simply adding a third one of those to the mix? Will it break?
I hadn't even thought about that. I think you have to use the cards,
I think
right?
it might work, because we
have to come up with a tiebreaker.
The trick's going to be you have to come up with a tiebreaker, and the second trick's going to be it'd be much simpler if we could just play clockwise around the table than figuring out first, second, and third. But I feel like because there's so much power in the card getting the initiative, I kind of feel like you need to play first, second, and third, which makes me feel like we should have a 3 extra tokens. You know, so each faction has an activation token. One side's got their logo on it, the other side's got a particular unit. We could take 3 extra tokens and put them on the side of the table and put them in the order of initiative, and then just keep reshuffling them as each player goes to remind us it's next person's thing.
That's a great idea.
The other thing that's built into Star Wars Legion that makes this easier on us is that each unit gets an activation token somewhere, and it's either face up and face down if they've already activated, so we won't have any problem remembering who hasn't gone yet.
Good point. Yep.
So I think the only mechanic we need to add is sort of the RPG initiative tracker on the side of the table to track who's going next.
Genius!
So we'll do that.
Yeah.
That's easy.
Yeah.
I think after that everything should be okay.
Right.
Because then all you just do, we're going to make the game take a little longer, but it kind of goes faster too because each unit's got its own brain in most cases because there's a player per unit.
Yeah.
So they've probably already figured out and weighed their options because they've only got 1 unit to worry about.
Right.
And if we have less players than there are units, which you probably will, because we typically get 10 or so players.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to have more than 10 units, probably.
Yeah.
But people can run double units. So I think we'll be okay there. So it sounds like, so far, it's pretty simple. We need an initiative tracker, and we're going to have it sounds like we're going to deploy the Rebels and the Imperials on either side of the table with I don't know, have 6-inch deployments? Or probably 10.
No, what I'm thinking is, remember the last game we played?
I like
where
that
it was
one.
lengthwise.
Do it that way?
And because I think we should even do the mission, right? And this is the actual mission that
what's the objective?
Yeah,
I like that mission a lot when we played last.
Right, and I think we can tweak it so make it a little more like the mission you came up with Titanicus, because I think that whole having multiple objectives, having them be worth different points depending upon where you are, and having them track because the game the mission that you and I played last, they only scored in I think 3 and 6,
I think it was
or 2, 4 and 6.
Yeah.
I think for the sake of a mega battle where you're not sure when it's going to happen.
Because one thing just so everybody knows about this format, we have about 2 hours to play, and you never know how slow a round is.
Yep.
But people just generally have a blast, and after 2 hours, they generally start getting distracted with other things. And so if people come to the table and you tell them it's going to be a 4-hour game, they're going to say no.
Right.
If you tell them a 2-hour game, it will be. So we want to try to keep it pretty reliably to 2 hours. And so one of the tricks to be able to do that and still feel like there's a winner, which the point Craig's making is, if we score every round, then and we set it up properly so that most of the time someone will be in the lead, there'll always be someone winning.
Right.
And when you do that also, it really puts pressure on playing to the objective as opposed to just running around and shooting guys.
Yep.
And players usually see that and get really into it. Makes it more interesting.
Yep. So I think what we should do is we should have play that mission, and I painted up all those objectives so they look better.
Awesome.
So there's a console.
I have a critical question for you.
Yes.
Did you paint the Wookiee?
I did, but they're not in the army.
Oh, but I'm excited for the Wookiee.
No, everything. Right. Russ, I was up till 3 a.m. I have painted everything I own.
Oh, even things that aren't being used?
Yes.
Wow,
that's why. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I was like, this was ridiculously stupid. As
Why
I
would
was
I do
painting the
this?
terrain, I was like, I just spent 3 hours painting models that aren't even going to hit the table tomorrow. But yeah, so the Wookiees are painted.
Okay.
I've got several new units. They're all
Okay.
painted, although those are actually going to be in.
Yeah.
I had, so they're all painted. But so here's my thought. So we have one console in each deployment zone, basically. So you
Yep.
start.
So one at the
You
droid
already have a
generator.
point.
Is there one at the droid generator
There's
also?
one at the droid generator, and you get 1 point for the one in your deployment zone.
Mm-hmm.
And should we just have it 2 points for either of the others, or?
Well, let me ask you this: Will
Yeah.
there be other? Are there only going to be 3 objectives, or are there more objectives?
Well, I don't know. Like that,
So-
the mission that we played, that I'm
Yeah,
kind of
there
like
was only
basing it
3.
off of, there are 3.
But there
there
was
are
only 2
many
armies.
more. Right.
Yeah. So what I'm wondering is, you can use a couple different ways. You can put one of them each deployment zone, so everybody owns one.
Mm-hmm.
That might make it kind of boring for the player
Right.
who's got to keep a unit back by the objective. True. So I wonder.
Ooh,
if
we could do. The Marvel Crisis Protocol has a mechanic
where you can leave
where
behind, you own it, and you leave it.
flip it. Once you flip it, you own
Yes.
it until someone else flips
I like
it.
that mechanic better because
Yeah.
now you can leave.
Right.
And if we're going to go that route, I say you have one in each area that's easy for each faction to get, and then maybe 2 more outside where the droids, like north and south of the droid.
Okay,
If the Imperium and the Rebels are east and west,
Nice. Yes.
there's 2 droids. There's 2 more objectives north and south of the center.
Yep.
So the droids have one, and everybody's going to have to converge on those easy ones, especially with your idea of leaving. If you leave it, it's safe.
Yeah.
Then if anybody's got fast-moving vehicles like the speeder bikes or anything, they can
Right.
try to zip around in the back and grab that,
Yeah.
which will then make it fun for someone to try to stay back and stop that.
Right.
So it'll make for some really interesting
think
tactics and
that's
keep the game
perfect.
dynamic.
Yeah, I like it. So there'll
All
be
right.
5.
So 5 objectives,
Objectives.
1 in each sort of deployment area. And
Luckily,
then 2 to the
because
point.
I'm a completist, I painted all the objectives, not just the 3 I thought we'd
Hey,
use.
you can make them all wounded Wookiees. Because we have all these big Wookiees. No, I like the objective idea. And it makes sense, too, if it's a control panel, because basically you're hacking it,
Yeah.
sending it to beam. What's the fluff? What are they sending?
The
Or
fluff is they're
hacking?
trying to figure out what happened to this forward base, and I'm sure the
Okay.
forward base has data that's necessary
So
for
maybe
the Rebel
each
Alliance.
of these things is data that you can start transmitting back home, and
Yeah.
someone else can run in and
Right.
hack it to trans back to them? Or that's something very simple.
Well, I think the Imperials are trying to stop it from transmitting.
Right. Okay.
And what are the droids trying to do?
Well,
They're trying to figure out what's happened since they went to sleep.
I think they're just, if you watch Clone Wars enough, the droid, especially since there's not going to be. So the one awkward thing about the droid, when Craig mentioned this idea, which I love, is that, of course, all the B-1 battle droids work perfectly. The droidicas work perfectly also because there's robots that are sitting there in slumber or being built. The tricky part is the leadership for the droids because all the leaders are characters who at this point in history are technically dead.
Yeah.
So it would have been awesome if they had one of the strategy droids in Star Wars, Clone Wars, but they haven't made that model, and even if I got it, they don't really have cards for it, so it would have been awkward. So I'm going to run Grievous, and the fluff here is somehow Grievous lived.
It's a Grievous.
It's a Grievous.
It's a Grievous clone.
Or maybe there's a Grievous template in the thing, and it made one like him, and it's trying to. Anyway, well, we got a little creative license on that one.
Yeah. I mean, you got it.
You got to do something. But yeah, if they eventually came out with the B1 battle, or if they had the agents, we could have got around it. But I bet they come out in the agents. But anyway, so they could be waking up, and they could just be like, well, the droids aren't very bright. And Grievous isn't the sharpest guy in the stack either all the time. So they're like, well, whatever these Imperials and Rebels are trying to download from the system, it's ours, and you can't have it.
Right.
And so they're just trying to turn it all off.
Okay.
Or something.
Yeah.
Or it must be important. We want to see what it is.
And can you give us an example of one of your B1 battle droid basic plaintive whine lines?
Oh, they're stealing our transmitters. Roger, Roger.
Hey! I just finished the latest season of Clone Wars, and I love when all of that you got I don't even know the more humanoid looking droids never even show up anywhere but in the cartoon, and they're like the coolest warrior droids. They're like kicking ass,
ones?
and
the
commando droids, and then you just got the regular little bitty bitty droids, and one just gets its blaster stolen from it, and it goes, "Hey!"
Yeah, they're awesome. Well, they're definitely comic relief. But it's kind of fun because they make the rookie clones also not too bright either.
That's
so they
true,
they kind of have both sides sort of deteriorating. I love there's a nod in one of the ones they find an old. They pick up the head. There's a bunch of battle droids on patrol, and they look down and they find a droid. They go, Oh, look, it's an old D5 unit. Remember when these guys had to be controlled by a central controller and just be all wiped out with one explosion? That was our dumb. That's what's kind of funny.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be good. So we got initiative tracker. We got 5 objectives.
I forgot we were recording.
We're going to be... see, they get behind the curtain. You get...
This is totally behind the curtain.
You get spawning all around the main objective there. I mean,
Yep.
the battlers are going to spawn in the center.
Yep.
And it should be good. And we'll run for 2 hours or,
Whatever
6
we
turns
got.
or whatever
Yep.
comes first. And it should be pretty good.
It should. And finally with so Imperial Terrain,
Yep.
We didn't get anything for free. Nobody's given us anything for free. We paid for everything. But if you go to the Imperial Terrain website, they've got this thing called Make Your Own Bundle.
Yep.
So you pick your theme,
Ooh.
and you get, I can't remember, it might be 15% off or something. And we bought a lot of terrain. And so it was, but anyway, so we got that. And then I can't remember, I think I'll try to remember or find out so that later on we can talk about who, like the Rebel Commander guy. He came from a different 3D printer
Yep.
on, I think, Etsy. And then I have some really cool terrain, although it printed rough. And
Yep.
you can tell on their website they're not trying to pull a fast one. It comes painted or unpainted. I took unpainted. And even in their examples online, you can tell there's printer lines everywhere.
Yeah,
it's
rough.
not...
Yep.
So I did what I could. I used filler primer. I sanded. I think they look pretty good. I'm not even gonna tell you what they are until we get there because I wanna have some drama.
All right.
So we've got some really cool terrain from that, and then this awesome turn counter that is actually looks like the Rebel Alliance radar from Yavin as the Death
cool.
Star is approaching. And that's like the turn is like every time the scene shifts back to Yavin and the graphic like shifts and the Death Star death cone gets closer and closer to Yavin. That is the turn counter that we now have, which comes from a 4th 3D printing concern.
Nice.
I think that one was from Etsy also, or Shapeways.
So we should definitely thank our patrons.
We should absolutely.
Because thanks to the support of our patrons,
Yep.
that money goes to budgets like this.
That's right.
And we're, to make sure we share this back with you guys, we'll be doing a VREP of this as well
Yep.
today. So we'll be filming.
It's subsidized. I put the lion's share of this terrain came out of my wallet, but the show through the patrons
takes it a little bit farther.
It took it quite a bit farther, but what happened was I was like, Russ, here's everything I want. If the show can pay for half of this, I can totally pay for the other half. And then Russ was like, oh, that looks great, do it, and PayPal'd me that from the account. And then I went, wait a minute, if they're paying for half of that, I can get more. And then we went
crazy. You went crazy.
I went crazy.
This will be great. So we'll definitely get footage of this so you guys can check it out, all of our patrons. So we're very excited to be doing this.
We are
today.
very excited. We think it's going to be a lot of fun.
All right, and then our very next PIP. So we're recording this on the way in.
Yep.
And then this will be a PIP, and then we'll do the VREP so you can actually watch the VREP and see what it looks like. And then as we drive home from the con tonight, we're going to record another PIP of how it went. And we'll give you guys the details of all that.
And if anything else cool happened.
Anything else cool we see there, and the mini Captain Con report, plus any insights from the event and things we might change. So if you want to try this yourself sometime, we'll share more of that with you.
Absolutely.
All right.
See
you soon.
Captain Con home!
All right.
Achievement unlocked! You've made it to the end of another D6 Generation episode, the podcast whose humor has universally been acclaimed as not too horrible. Please let us know what you thought of the show by emailing us at info@the d6generation.com. If for some inexplicable reason you actually enjoyed this show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. Thanks for listening and happy gaming.